Hey guys, welcome to Amity Tracks. Let's do another cult albums video. These you guys seem to like these, so let's do another one. Remember we've talked about this before in these videos. I mean, it's a loose definition of a cult album, kind of like you know it when you see it, right? I mean, these are records that, generally speaking, we're not in the mainstream. Maybe didn't sell a whole lot, especially upon initial release, but they have a devoted following, uh, strong critical backing. So I mean, what is an occult album? I don't know, but you guys seem to like these videos, so let's keep going. I don't know. This is the sixth one or something. Who knows? I got five more. I always give you five. Once again, we'll just go chronological order. So the first one I want to start with is from really obscure artist that you might not have heard of by the name of Bob Seger. So, you know, you might be thinking, okay, Bob Seger, a cult album. Well, it depends on which Bob Seger album you pick, because to most people, most listeners, especially to radio, this might as well have been his first album, right? Live Bullet, a double live album from the was it '76, I think. This is the one that really shot him into the mainstream, and then of course he had a whole series of albums after this, which were huge. But what a lot of people don't realize is he had like 8 albums before this. Most of them very obscure. Most of them, I don't know. I guess most of them are way out of print. You know, I only see any of those earlier ones, in the used bins, which is where I found this one. And my first pick would be his debut, or more technically, I should say, the debut of the Bob Seger System from 1969. Yeah, this I picked this up recently in the I don't know, for a couple bucks in the used bins. What a revelation! Yeah, I mean, the album's called Ramblin Gamblin Man after the title track, and I had heard that one, of course. I mean, there's a blazing live version of that on Live Bullet, and it's actually one of the few songs from this era that still will pop up sometimes on some greatest hits and whatnot. That song's great. I already knew that song was great. This whole thing is great, though. It's kind of funky. It's groovy as hell, and there's even some awkward stabs at psychedelic, sounds here and there. They're kind of endearing, and it all kind of comes together and works. And from the very beginning, that great vocal delivery, that great gritty vocals from Bob Seger are there. And it's kind of buried in the mix a little bit, but it kind of makes for, it's a sign of the times, right? 1969. But I was very surprised, pleasantly surprised, that I was enjoying this a great deal, start to finish. Really, really cool stuff. And I mean, a lot looser and groovier than some of his better known hits into the later '70s and into the '80s. Kind of prefer this Bob Seger. All right, my number two, coming from 1972, is by a band called Grin. Now you might recognize the name of this guy and the name above the band's name, Nils Lofgren. This is Nils Lofgren's band. I guess they're the other guys in Grin. There they are. But yeah, it's kind of billed as Nils Lofgren's band. Now, I mean, you guys know Nils Lofgren, longtime guitarist in Springsteen's E Street Band, has played a lot with Neil Young off and on through the decades, a current member of Crazy Horse. So yeah, Nils is sort of Bruce and Neil's right-hand guitar man. So, but this was an album of his own band. They were out of Washington D.C. Grin never really broke through all that much. I mean, he only got this record. I was reading some background. He only got this record contract because of his association with Neil Young, and Neil kind of helped him, get the attention. And they made a few albums, but they never really broke through, which is a shame. This is their second record, and it looks like two. It's actually 1+1, what the name of the record is, but really good stuff. I mean, kind of gritty, just like solid 70s rootsy classic rock, with lots of guitar, some guitar solos that really jump out at you in places like really impressive. And yeah, it was great. Now this would actually work on my Perfect Sides series too, because side one is awesome on here. They kind of taper off a bit on side two, in my view, but still really strong. And yeah, great voice too, or has had, whatever when he sings, kind of, I don't know, kind of Bob Dylan-ish, but a little more rock and roll in there too. I don't know, I like it. Kind of nasally, but in a good way. In a good way. All right, 1976 is my next one. This guy, almost the definition of a cult artist. I have this on CD. God, I would love to have this on vinyl. I, I got a notification from a record store here in town that they had a vinyl copy, and by the time I got over there, it was gone. The guy told me, yeah, I could have sold this thing like 5 times over for people coming in asking about it. Anyway, I would love to get this on vinyl, but it's okay on CD in the meantime. Talking about Terry Reid and Seed of Memory. Now, if you guys know anything about Terry Reid, like I said, one of the ultimate cult artists. This guy, um, probably most famous for the band he turned down. So he was kind of making his way as a solo artist, sort of on the rise, this huge promising career in the late '60s. And this guy by the name of Jimmy Page asked him, "Hey, I'm putting together this new band." He was trying to kind of, the story with the roots of Led Zeppelin, right? Page was putting together kind of a new version of the Yardbirds for a little while, and then just morphed into Led Zeppelin. And so he approached Terry Reid and say, "Hey, man, you want to sing for my band?" And Reid's like, "Nah, I already got something going here, but you ought to check out my buddy, this guy by the name of Robert Plant." You know what happened after that. So anyway, Terry Reid is one of those guys who like should have been huge, but just never quite broke through. Had a series of really great records, as you might imagine. If Jimmy Page wanted him in his new band, the guy's a powerhouse voice. It's always been sort of fascinating to imagine him singing for Led Zeppelin. Would have been interesting. Really cool. I mean, Terry Reid's great. Anyway, this is another candidate for Perfect Sides. Side one of this, or what would be side one on vinyl, is brilliant. Um, kind of folk, acoustic, kind of dark, but all kinds of interesting musical things going on in there, and then just powerful vocals. These songs, "Faith to Arise," "Seed of Memory," "Brave Awakening," and "To Be Treated Right," those 4 songs that make up that first half are just brilliant. On the second side, kind of it becomes a little more pedestrian, but it doesn't blunt that first side. It's just so incredible. Interesting. This record was produced by Graham Nash, which I find kind of interesting. But anyway, "Seed of Memory." All right, moving into 1979. You guys know I've got a thing for Bill Bruford, one of my all-time favorite drummers. Go watch my top 10 drummers video, see where he ranks. And, Bill Bruford of Yes, of King Crimson. And, if you want to give him kind of the Holy Trinity, he did tour. He did do one tour and drummed for Genesis too, right? So the progressive God, right? But he's done all kinds of side things. I'm going with 1979, a band he put together called Bruford. And this is the Bruford Tapes. It's a live album. And almost sort of, the sound quality is like a good bootleg. It doesn't matter, though. I mean, this is still so worth it. It's almost like jazz fusion. The players on here, I mean, Bill Bruford, like the other 3 guys in this group, sort of equal Bruford's skill, and it's just mind blowing. You just want this kind of fusion-y, but more from the rock side, but sort of fusion, just insane playing. Obviously, Bill Bruford on drums, Dave Stewart on keyboards, Jeff Berlin on electric bass, and then John Clark on electric guitar. And it's just, man, it's just pedal to the metal, amazing stuff. I would highly recommend. This is another one I picked up kind of recently and sort of $3. I mean, for $3 and just some bin, and Bruford's name on it. I was like, okay, yeah, check it out for $3. Blew me away. This is so great, so great. All right, my final choice here for our cult albums video. I love the 80s, but we're going to skip the 80s on this one. We're going to jump all the way to 1990. And it's a cult band. I guess it kind of is. But because this band is more famous for, the two guys that were kind of leading the band, but more famous for where those two guys went after this band, right? But I gotta tell you, my view is these guys were never better than when they were together in this band than they went off, before they went off to do their more famous, spin-off bands or whatever. Well, I'm talking about Uncle Tupelo, and I'm picking their debut, No Depression. They only put out 4 records. All 4 of them are brilliant. Still Feel Gone and March 16th through 20th, 1992. Very odd title for an album. And then Anodyne before they all went their separate ways. But yeah, I'm sticking with the debut, No Depression. This was this was the impact that this had, at least kind of on the underground. It's mixing sort of like punk and old school hard country, but just in the most authentic ways. And I think that push and pull is no more dramatic than on the debut. They kind of smooth it out a little bit on their subsequent records, but this just jarring, so great. This had such an impact, kind of underground, so to speak. The title "No Depression" became sort of shorthand for this whole movement. This kind of alt country movement with this punk energy. They really got into the '90s and all that. So obviously the two guys I'm talking about, Jay Farrar and Jeff Tweedy. Everyone knows Jeff Tweedy, Wilco, Jay Farrar with Sunvolt. It's kind of interesting, as Jay Farrar was sort of the leader and Tweedy was sort of the second, second guy on the totem pole. And you can hear through the albums as Tweedy's talents, increase. And then there's this this creative tension between the two, and they couldn't last. I know people worship Wilco. I like Wilco, but yeah, to be honest with you, for both of these guys, I go back to the Uncle Tupelo days. I love it, and this is foundational. Awesome. Well, all right, that's a kind of a quick one, but there you go. There's 5 more cult albums. Keep it going in the comments, in the conversation. More cult albums you can think of that we ought to check out. Thanks for watching, guys. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell for notifications, like the videos, and we'll see you next time on Amity Tracks. Actually, if this video goes up, when I think it's going to go up, yeah. After this video, we're going to dive into the Rolling Stones week, because as you know, their new album, Hackney Diamonds, is coming out. Well, I think when this video is going to air, it'll be tomorrow, Friday the 20th, right? And so we're going to start with a review of the new album, and then we're gonna dive into the Stones. We're gonna do Stones ranking and just get into all their stuff. So that's exciting. I've been holding back on the Rolling Stones for a while, but with the new album coming out, got to do it. All right, we'll see you guys next time.